Good evening and welcome to Old Romans Unscripted. Oh, now we have an echo. Why have we got an echo? Are your headphones in?
Yeah. I have no echo on my end.
Oh, hold on. Could it be that? Oh, is it gone?
Yeah, I don't have an echo. There you go.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Father Tom. How are you?
Tired, busy. As I was talking with you earlier this morning, between I think I'm up to 5 novenas going on right now, and offices and saying the mass, everything else going on in my life. I was able to get on. Praise be God for that. Thanks be to God.
Which is brilliant. Likewise, I've had a very full day. Today I've had various, I've been holding an online vocations conference, which is technically still going on. And I had a group session this morning. I've had various interviews this afternoon, which has been wonderful. It's been great to meet, as it were, face to face, although via a medium such as this, but at least to meet face to face with these wonderful candidates who are discerning God's will and vocation for their lives, and are choosing to explore that with us, which is a great honor and a very great privilege. And it's been great to hear their faith stories firsthand, and to discuss the possibilities of ongoing discernment. And then I've got, after this, another conference session, because of course I'm fielding candidates from around the world, so we've had to work and split between 2 time zones effectively, which my own time zone is just about able to accommodate. Just about. There is somebody from Malaysia who hopefully is going to join us this evening, at whatever ridiculous time of the day or night it will be for him. But nonetheless, that's all. It's all good and positive. But it did mean, of course, that my last interview overran somewhat, and I pressed the wrong button for the broadcast, which is why. Right. Which is why, for
that
those
scared
of you...
me. Because I was in the middle of cleaning, and I was just getting ready to put my habit back on, and all of a sudden I get a notification, Old Romans is live right now, and I'm like, what? I'm like,
yeah, no, that's my fault. It's because I was sort of panicking. I had to get off Zoom, get into StreamYard.
Caused me to panic too.
And I pressed the wrong button. So instead of pressing Angelus and Rosary, I pressed Old Romans Unscripted too early. So apologies to those of you who may have got the reminder earlier and didn't get Unscripted, but got the Angelus and the Rosary. I hope you were suitably edified and humbled by that experience, and that you joined in with the prayers. I know some of you did, but... of course, we were able to launch appropriately at 6:30 with the correct titles. Once I realised that I also had to swap studios, then I could do so internally. So that's all done. So we're here, and here with a Michaelmas edition, which we will talk about more of in just a moment. But first, we'll do what we advertise that we do for Unscripted. And we're going to look at a couple of headlines, but only a couple of headlines. And then we will get into Michaelmas and what that's all about. But first of all, let's take, this is literally sort of hot off the press. So here we go. So this, of course, was breaking news only yesterday. Cardinal, and I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his name, so I'm going to have a stab at Betchu, but I could be wrong, resigns amid
God bless you.
A fairly high profile scandal. And of course, this this is maybe the beginning of the end of a scandal that really began under Benedict XVI's pontificate, with the whole WikiLeaks scandal and the Vatican Bank, etc. And this chap, Becciu, I'm not quite sure. I do apologize. I could have looked that up. And I don't know if he's Albanian, Romanian, or Italian. I'm not sure. But he has been kind of involved with this this ongoing scandal in various different positions. Initially as second to the Secretary of State under Benedict XVI, and then under Pope Francis. That's right. Then under Francis, again, various high-ranking, high-profile positions within the Curia, where he's seemingly, so the accusation goes, been able to influence proceedings, influence all sorts of things. One of the accusations is that he personally put a stop to the PricewaterhouseCoopers audit that Cardinal Pell had originally instigated to address the Vatican Bank corruption, and I suppose to get a complete picture of the financial situation. This was toward the beginning of Francis's pontificate, but this character, Becciu, then stopped that audit from happening. He prevented that audit from happening, and even, from what I can tell, got a backdated decree authorizing this halt of the audit from Francis himself. And then the accusations now too are that he was ciphering off Peter's pence to the tune of something like 100,000 to an operation that his brother manages, or his brother runs, and this was going to be exposed in L'Espresso, in the Italian press, and that's why Pope Francis has now fired him. The original reports were that he had resigned, but apparently the truth of the matter is that Francis told him to go, and has dropped him, as we would say in the UK, like proverbial SHIT to a brick. Has literally, Francis has just dropped him in it. And this guy, who was a close collaborator of Francis, he facilitated various other high-profile events for Francis. He also was Cardinal Burke's replacement for the Order of St. John of Malta, to sort out that problem. So he has been a close collaborator with Francis, and now with these accusations has not only been fired from his position, but has also been told, has given up his privileges as a cardinal. So it's not just that he's lost the job of doing whatever it was he was doing in the Curia, but he was also basically ordered by Francis to give up his privileges as a cardinal, if not actually his cardinal's hat. Now, just before you comment, Bishop Kelly has joined us. So I'm going to bring him on stream. Hello, Bishop Kelly. How are you?
I'm fine. How's everyone?
Good. Yes, because that was looking a bit like Dallas then. Do you prefer? Do you prefer the Dallas titles?
Do the three-way. Do the triangle.
Or the three-way.
I like
There
the
we
triangle
go.
better. That way I'm not stuck between two bishops.
So we're just discussing the Becciu or Becciu. I don't know if you know how to pronounce the cardinal name. His sudden resignation or firing. Who wants to comment first?
Your Grace?
I'm playing catch up, so go ahead.
All right. Well, it's quite interesting because the more I was researching into this man's events and all what he seems to have his hands, all the cookie jars his hands were in, noticeably they all came down to money. They all came down to the Vatican Bank and everything going on there. And he was actually a big contributor and pusher for that London property that got all the news. His name was on that. And so all this coming together, and once they get it all investigated, and Pell and Vigano's investigations and what they were doing, now everything seems to come into light. And now Francis is saying, okay, so I knew, and this is the funny thing is this isn't a big shocker to anybody. It's like, I knew you were involved in this, but I let you do it. And now after so many years, okay, now you got to give up your cardinal's hat and you got to resign. It's like, well, hold on a second. Where's the accountability for the people that knew what was going on and didn't put a stop to it from the beginning? They let it continue on. They let it draw out so they could be like, oh, we have all this, scandal. We have all this stuff going on and we need to do something about it. Now we're doing something about it. Look at us. We're so holy. We're so righteous. We're doing something about it. But you had the chance to stop it from ever happening and you didn't do that. Now you're saying, oh, look at us. We're doing something. We're cleaning house, or, use the famous quote that's going around right now in America, draining the swamp, if you will. But my question is, why did they even allow this to happen in the first place? Like, all the bad stuff that he did, why was that even allowed to go on and take place? And why was he elevated to being a cardinal just to have it removed a few years later? That's my 2 cents on the matter.
Mm-hmm. Bishop Kelly.
Well, anyone that touches or is assigned to that Vatican Bank, they're doomed. Whether they languish in jail for over a year in Australia, or found swinging underneath Blackfriars Bridge, it really is toxic. It's like the British government equivalent of being made Secretary of State for Northern Ireland. It really is. It's the worst thing that could possibly happen to a career cleric. There's more to this than meets the eye. It'll probably not all come out. I did come across something, and I was in between doing things. I just saw it on my phone quickly, and I didn't read the whole article. But there was some statement from Cardinal Pell, I think, congratulating the Pope on rooting this out and thanking him for doing it. And Francis was supposed to be the Pope that was elected to do away with this corruption. Now, I think it was Pell that perhaps suggested that, that Pope Francis was playing the long game here. I don't know. He would know more than I would, but that he has finally managed to root it out. But I don't think it will. I mean, that stench will continue to bubble up. A new person will come along, even as well-intentioned as they are, but they will be seduced by the money and the allure of riches and gain and power, and it really is a rotten fruit in the barrel of the Vatican. It's interesting too. Just as an aside, he's put aside his cardinal privileges. Now, he wasn't decardinalated as
No.
McCarrick was. But I'd be interested to see if that includes his voting privilege, just like
It does.
The
It
Scottish
does.
fellow. Who was the Scottish fellow?
Cardinal O'Brien.
O'Brien.
Cardinal O'Brien, yeah. Yeah, apparently it does. So he has forfeited his right to vote in the next conclave.
Okay. At least that's something. I mean, the rest of the privileges is just looking pretty, isn't it? Really. But that's the one that really. I mean, honestly, what you get a certain position in a procession or something. I mean, the real privilege, or you have your church in Rome. Perhaps you'll lose that. But the real power there is the vote in the conclave.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it just proves, of course, as well, doesn't it, what our Lord says. You can't serve two masters. You can't serve both God and money. It just doesn't work out. It just doesn't work out. And many try. I mean, I don't know if either of you know the film Monsignor that starred Christopher Reeves.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the Godfather trilogy too. They both, were films based on Vatican Bank scandals. And throughout history, we've it's never worked well. this whole notion of a Vatican Bank.
Yeah. I mean, you can see there was at a time when the Vatican actually was a state, when they had papal states and land, and they had to receive taxes and all of that to govern. I mean, obviously there's a need for an institution like that. But I question it now when it's a few square meters in the heart of Rome. And I remember as a child that it was a big deal once a year, the Peter's Pence collection. I mean, we were prepped for it in school, and to remind our parents the next Sunday is going to be Peter's Pence. And the thought was, I mean, it's such a quaint, lovely title. You can see St. Peter there, sort of like the Queen on Maundy Thursday, giving out these things to the poor. And we were led to believe it was, for the church to reach out to the poor. And here we go to find out it's buying townhouses in London and all sorts of extravagant expenditures. I mean, and that's the real tragedy. Money comes and goes. What is money anyway? You got to spend it on something. You can't take it anywhere. But the tragedy is the scandal caused to the faithful when you've got the widow's mite go in there and give in to Peter's Pence to find out that some cardinal's buying a house in London. And it could cause someone to lose their faith. And that's the true scandal of it. Like all of these things.
Yeah, I mean, over the years it has. I mean, the number of, I'm sure you've met, people who have said, well, I was a Catholic, or I was brought up a Catholic, but because of the money, because of the scandals, because of the sex abuse, etc., people have left the church, and some of them have left the faith.
I remember being challenged in school in the either the late 80s, early 90s by a guy, because I was involved, and I went to daily mass at school, and I was sort of involved in the sort of Catholic life of school. But I mean, he really challenged me about the Vatican Bank, and I think he's from Chicago actually. That Marcinkus guy that was involved in the scandal back near the Blackfriars Bridge incident, and the fact that they had shares in contraceptive companies and all this sort of stuff. And he's challenged me. How could you put your faith in a church that preaches this but yet does that? And I didn't have the tools to refute him, other than, well, this is the faith, and but it really is a scandal to people, and rightly so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And of course, and as you inferred, or you made an oblique reference, of course, to Cardinal Pell, who had been trying to do the right thing, and had been took seriously the remit that he thought Francis meant to give him to sort things out, was attempting to sort things out. And then this chap seems to have been a major player in preventing, that audit, which would no doubt have brought these things to light much sooner. And then suddenly, that's Pell, sent back to Australia. I mean, they put it all in very nice language, but essentially he was, dropped like proverbial SHIT to the brick to face those false and heinous allegations in Victoria, with no help, no assistance. Shocking. Yeah, really quite nefarious, the whole thing. Okay, let's move on. We've got just one more headline, and then we'll get on to because then we're going to talk about Michaelmas. Remember?
Yeah, I remember.
You remember that was your idea.
It was. I know. It was such a busy week here, especially in the United States.
Here we go. So this is about the whole Pope and China situation. In June of 2013, Pope Francis dispatched to China the now infamous Theodore McCarrick to begin deliberations with the Chinese Communist Party to normalize relations with the Chinese Catholic Church. Those negotiations resulted in a secret pact signed by the parties on September the 22nd, 2018. The result of this 2-year agreement made for a bad ending for all religious believers in China. Nevertheless, all signs point to a renewal of the disastrous Vatican-China secret deal. Okay. Again, who wants to comment first?
I mean, I'll give it a go. It's this is the worst of the worst. It really is. Where to start with this mess? It just goes against absolutely everything. It's say what you want about John Paul II, and there are many criticisms to have of the man. He was vehemently anti-communist, and he stood strong against the communist regime in Europe at the time, and of course in China. He refused to bow down to the national church. He criticized it. He bolstered and appointed bishops and in pectore cardinals to the underground church. Now here comes Francis under Theodore McCarrick, and they do this secret deal. Reportedly, $2 billion a year is given from China to the Vatican coffers. I don't know who the new cardinal will be collecting that, but that would buy a lot of real estate in London, I'm sure. And in return for that, the churches are having their crosses taken from the top of them. Even the crosses inside. Actually, it's funny that you brought this up today, because I was just listening to something this morning from a dissenter from China Christian who's living in Canada. And she says they're even replacing the crucifixes in the church with the Chinese red flag.
Mm. Oh yeah, and with portraits of the president as well. Yeah,
this. I mean, it's a cliche, but if you want an example, this is a deal with the devil. And you get just of its of its own. I mean, it's just everything about Chinese comes from its one-child policy to its. I mean, not even as a Christian. Look what they're doing to the Muslims and the Buddhists. They just want to stamp out religion and replace it with the religion of man, which sounds familiar. Anyway, it is. It's absolutely staring you in the face, and the fact that the Vatican has done a deal, authored and brokered by McCarrick, I mean, should have everyone tearing their hair out about what a bad thing this is. But yet, no, nobody says much. It just coasts along, and it's up to people like Vigano or and various others to point this glaring thing out. It's absolutely the worst thing after Vatican II that the Church has done. Perhaps they're in the running for it for the gold medal there. I don't know, but it's pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean it's the sellout of the underground church, particularly, has just been appalling, and one can't help but feel for Cardinal Zen, Emeritus Hong Kong, who still, bless him, is whoever will listen to him, he will tell them how awful this situation is and what a betrayal of martyrs. Let's not forget, there were Catholics who were martyred for resisting the imposition of the Catholic Patriotic Association, and for going into the catacombs and to the underground church. The bishops who have died imprisoned, others who have died from starvation, literally, and I mean just awful situation. And then of course is what's going on in Hong Kong now, with the Chinese president imposing political sanctions and basically curbing the rights and freedoms that were given the Hong Kong citizens by the British, and agreed with China to continue when Hong Kong reverted to Chinese patrimony. And the difference, we're used at the moment, of course, to seeing all sorts of protests on our screens, but what we don't really see enough of are these true social justice warriors in Hong Kong, who literally are protesting for their rights and freedoms as citizens. Mm-hmm. This is, it's just an awful situation, and the whole McCarrick element to it as well. And of course, we're still waiting for that report. We're still waiting for the report of McCarrick. I mean, it is quite a bizarre situation that a cardinal has not only been demoted, but defrocked, has been reduced to the lay state, but as yet, with no official, canonical pronounced judgment on his case.
Well, they can't have a canonical judgment against this case because he's a layperson now. That's the whole reason why they did it.
Oh, I know.
And that's why we're not going to see the report, is because he's a layperson now, and we cannot see what a cleric has done if he's been laicized. They silenced this whole thing up because, I mean, they played their card right on this. So that way the general public will never know the true dirty secrets and ins and outs of Mr. McCarrick and all his debauchery and diabolical works that he's infiltrated this church with. And I mean, with this China agreement, okay, is anybody really shocked? I mean, okay, so maybe Pope Francis every once in a while says a few nice things, or maybe has some orthodoxy to him, or he does, what's the old saying? A blind squirrel falls into a nut every once in a while. Okay, great.
What was that you said?
a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. You know that old saying? It's
I don't
like
know that old saying, but anyway,
okay,
with the broken clock is right twice a day.
right? You know. Anyways,
I like the squirrel and the nut analogy.
I like the yes, it's a really good
one. But I mean, you know, this is why we're here. This is why we're doing what we're doing. This is why the old Roman Catholic Church exists. This is why the Orthodoxy exists. This is why we have churches that, you know, in a sense, whatever you want to call it, we're preserving the faith because we realize what the faith is. And if anybody is still shocked and awed and all disgruntled and completely just blown away by all this stuff that's happening in the Vatican and Rome and with the Roman clergy and everything like that, no, we're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But if anybody's still shocked about this, it's like, you need to find orthodoxy. You need to find what the real Catholic faith is and live it out. And then you're not going to be shocked. You're going to be like, okay, fine. It's a wave in the water pool of life, or the ocean of life, if you will. You know, it's just another wave, and you're on the boat, you're on the ship, you're on the bark of Peter, and you're safe. Don't let these waves, you know, they may get you a little wet, you may get a little splash or whatever like that, but don't let them have you jump off ship or start freaking out because of all this stuff. I mean, so it's all coming to light. Great, it's all coming to light, so people can know the truth and know where the true church lies. But I mean, so to wrap this up here, what we need to do is we need to pray, and I think this is going to be a good segue to get into Michaelmas here. Is we need to pray. We need to do acts of reparation. We need to pray for the poor souls in China, the underground church in China. We need to pray for these souls who are trying to live the authentic Catholic life, be saints. They're trying to be saints. And we need to pray for them. And we need to invoke their guardian angels. We need to invoke the archangels, the whole celestial choir of angels, their saints or patron saints. Invoke our prayers to unite to theirs. And that is what's going to really bring the strength of this faith and the love of Jesus Christ. And we're going to see miracles like you would never see before. We're still going to have all this debauchery and all this stuff going on, but we're going to see miracles if we do that. So let's get into Michaelmas.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good
Before
thing.
we move, it's not the first time that martyrs of the church have been betrayed by the papacy.
No.
You think of the Reformation that happened in so-called Reformation that happened in England and then forced upon Scotland and Ireland, and the coming to the throne of James II, when he was usurped by William of Orange, a Dutchman, a Protestant, who was backed by the Pope. The Pope backed the Protestant Calvinist, I presume, coming from Holland, over the Catholic King James, because it politically suited him with alliances on continental Europe, despite the fact of the persecution of Catholics in the British Isles. Not just what had happened, but what would go until the repeal and the reestablishment of the hierarchy, the repeal of the penal laws in Ireland, where many people would continue to suffer and be martyred on behalf of the Catholic faith. The Pope totally forsook them for political and, I assume, monetary gain. So this is nothing new. And I'm sure if we delved into history, we'd find other examples. That's just one that springs to mind because where I'm from. I mean, even the Orange Order, one of the lodges has a banner with the Pope blessing King Billy. I mean, it's extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's all happened before.
It's
very sad, and it just goes to well, it does reinforce the this sort of idolatry of the Pope that has crept in.
Papolatry, yeah.
And it's the man is fallible, absolutely fallible, and they make bad mistakes. you know, if you look at papal history, the ones that pretend or certainly come across as being devout and holy make all the wrong decisions. The debauched ones don't make any bad decisions at all. They sort of, I mean, the Borgias.
They're too busy. They're too busy doing the debauchery to bother with touching the faith or anything. Yeah,
exactly. They don't care about that. Just let that roll on.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
I mean, that's the one thing about Alexander the Bourgeois, wasn't it? You know.
Yeah.
Well, at least he didn't touch anything. I mean,
Well, no, didn't he introduce the Angelus? He introduced the Angelus, didn't he?
Did he introduce?
No. He introduced the Angelus. He was the one that brought the Angelus back because it was right. It started and then it went away and then he came back. Yeah, that was the one thing he did that was actually like pious.
Well, that was good. Yeah, well, that was good. I mean, the legacy of that until 50 years ago. Yeah.
Well, we're bringing it back.
Right. Okay. Let's move on then. Okay, here we go. Okay, so Michaelmas, that's this Tuesday, the 29th of September, is the feast of St. Michael. Now, it's the feast of the dedication of St. Michael, and of course, I'm giving it here the traditional title of the feast. The new conciliarist, whatever title is St. Michael and all angels, or St. Michael and Raphael and Gabriel, because they've taken away their own respective feasts. But it is the feast of the dedication of St. Michael, is its traditional title, and of course it actually is commemorating the feast of dedication of the church that was dedicated to the patronage of St. Michael in Rome. Sadly, no longer there. The church is long lost, but the feast pertains. And this feast, of course, falls, as I said, on Tuesday. And traditionally, the time around this feast is known as Michaelmas. So I just want to give a little more of this kind of historical background to it all. Michaelmas, of course, falls near the equinox, and the day is associated with the beginning of autumn, of the shortening of days in England, and it's known as traditionally as one of the quarter days. So the 4 quarter days in a year are Lady Day, the 25th of March, which is of course the feast of Father Tom.
I'm sorry, I'm having issues with my camera and everything right now. What's going on?
Doesn't matter. Do you want to come out and come back in?
No, I'm good. What was the date?
Okay. 25th of March.
That would be the Nativity of our Blessed Mother. No.
The
Annunciation.
The Annunciation. Of Gabriel. Yeah. That's it. Excellent.
Had to do with our Blessed Mother. I knew that.
Yeah. So that's traditionally known as Lady Day. Then Midsummer, 24th of June, Michaelmas, 29th of September, and Christmas, which is, of course, the 25th of December. They're spaced 3 months apart. On religious festivals, usually close to the solstices or equinoxes. They were the 4 dates on which servants were traditionally hired, rents were traditionally due, or that new leases began. It used to be said that harvest had to be completed by Michaelmas, almost like the marking of the end of the productive season and the beginning of the new cycle of farming. And it was the time at which new servants were hired or land was exchanged, debts were paid. And this is how it came to be for Michaelmas, the time for electing magistrates, justices of the peace, and also the beginning of both the legal and university terms. And so still to this day, various universities, like, for example, Oxford University, still calls this autumn term Michaelmas term. So that's some of the history behind Michaelmas. Now, perhaps, fathers, you might answer a question, and that's, what does Michaelmas mean to you?
Well, I'll take that one. I'll take that for 400, please. Well, I'll start with an easy one. It's the anniversary of my ordination to priesthood. In 2007, I was ordained on the feast of Saint Michael. But it does remind me of the beginning of term. That in at least two of the universities I attended, that was the first day of term. During seminary, we had the opening mass for the the mass for the opening of the academic year was on St. Michael's Day. But it also reminds me of goose.
Yeah, that's one of my favourite traditions, is the Michaelmas goose.
And you know, I did do a little bit of Googling, and I've never heard this term, but it makes sense. It's referred to as a stubble goose. Stubble referring to the harvest that had just happened.
Yeah.
The stubble in the field. And it would have been a leaner goose than the goose that you would have at Christmas.
Yeah, because it's before Christmas.
Because it was before Christmas. And I have really fond... the trick-or-treating thing at Halloween is a very American tradition, but around the same time, we used to go around the doors as young children, and we'd ring the doorbell, and we'd have a rhyme, and it was, "Christmas is coming, and the goose is getting fat. Please put a penny in the old man's hat. If you haven't got a penny, a halfpenny will do. If you haven't got a halfpenny, then God bless you."
God bless you. Yeah.
And we would, you know, people would throw in a penny, 10p, 50p if you were lucky, you know. And we would divide it amongst us, and we'd go and buy sweets, candy, chocolate, something like that. But that all happened. That's sort of my memories as a child. The goose thing sort of, when I was younger, Mum would cook a goose around that time. But it sort of fell out because we didn't like it.
Oh, I love goose.
I do now. Yes, I do now. And we used to have it at Christmas too. But again, everyone else was having turkey, so we pestered to have turkey. And my father hates turkey, and so he put up with it, and because it was usually served with turkey and ham. So, I do have early memories of the goose that time of year, and you know, I love it now. It just depends how you cook it. Roast,
just roast it. It's great for roasting, and you get all the fat and the juice, and then that all over your potatoes, and it's just divine, absolutely divine. And then you know, of course, traditionally they'd keep the wings, because of course the wings then were representative of the archangel.
Yeah, and every year it's nigh on impossible to get a goose here in Chicago. I know of one place you can. You'll pay an arm and a leg for it. It'd be cheaper to go to the local cemetery and shoot one of the Canadian things.
They're not good to eat.
Yeah, no. And I could get arrested for doing it. But I do still go and I buy goose fat for making my roast potatoes for the Christmas.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, that's
cool. Father Tom, Michaelmas, what does it mean to you?
Novenas. It's like the beginning, if you will, of like a whole novena run. It's wonderful though. I mean, because you have the St. Michael Chaplet novena going on right now that will conclude on his feast day coming up Tuesday. And if anybody's ever prayed that chaplet, the St. Michael Chaplet, it is beautiful. It's powerful, and it if you haven't done it, do it. It's not too late. You can get it in on the feast day. It's not like necessarily a novena, but it's done 9 days or starts 9 days prior to the feast. Today, 9 days prior to our Seraphic Fathers feast day coming up, I started the Franciscan, the St. Francis novena. I have a bunch of other novenas going on, 54-day Rosary novena. So it's like you're building up, because you know what St. Michael does, what this feast kind of does is it takes us into the fall. And you know, as you guys already kind of talked about, the harvest and the preparation work, getting us that preparedness for what's to come, the great feasts that are coming up in the liturgical year. And so it kind of is that kind of like a last hurrah celebration where you get to have a goose, you get to have this feast, but then you also are now in ready mode. That kind of like that leaner goose is preparing you for the preparational fasting and all the other work that's going to be going on from the Feast of St. Michael to Christmas. It's kind of carrying you over in that sense. So you have all these prayers, devotions, novenas, you know, and everything going on. So for me, it's that invoking of St. Michael the Archangel, also the other archangels and the other 9 choirs of angels, invoking them to help me on this spiritual journey that's coming up. And that's what the chaplet's about. You know, you're invoking the 9 choirs of angels, and you're asking for certain guidance that they give you, you know, related to their state in the heavenly host. So for me, it's about a spiritual preparedness to best be able to be ready for what's coming up ahead. That being, you know, the Feast of All Saints and All Souls, the conception of our Blessed Mother, Christmas, and all those other wonderful feasts coming up in the next few months ahead, as we, you know, end this calendar year and the harvest and the farming year, and we prepare for all these wonderful feasts coming up in the liturgical year. It's bringing that togetherness of inviting the heavenly celestial choirs of angels, our saints, guardian, all that, and bringing us all together for what's ahead. Hello?
Yeah.
Am I there?
Yeah, no, yeah, we're still here. Yeah.
My screen just went all black, so I had no idea what was going on.
That's all right. Don't panic. It's just because I've just put up this this picture of the St. Michael prayer. Now, of course, those of you familiar with the traditional Mass will know that after Low Mass, it's long been the tradition to pray the St. Michael prayer. Bishop Kelly, why is this prayer so important, so significant, and so relevant to us today?
Well, today more than ever, we need to pray against the protection of evil. I mean, we talked about it earlier with the Church's collaboration with the evil Chinese Communist Party. That we need to be protected against the works of evil and the devil in our world today. I mean, it's been an active campaign the last 50, 60 years to remove the devil and his minions and evil from the vocabulary of Christianity. And that there is no sin, just shortcomings. You know, there is no evil, just wrong choices. And we have sidelined that. We have downplayed it, and to our peril, because evil is running rampant. From the advance of communist China to the proliferation of abortion, basically human sacrifice, if you want, or certainly the destruction of human life, all of which is a pure manifestation of evil. And the seduction, as we talked about even earlier in our broadcast, about the corrupt cardinal of the Vatican Bank, that the church is not immune to the wiles and seductions of the evil one. So the prayer to be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil, and the call upon Michael to rebuke him and cast him down into hell. The reference to prowling the world, seeking the ruin of souls, because remember that the devil himself is like a roaring lion, wandering the world, seeking the ruin of souls, St. Paul says. So we should pray that prayer. And I believe it was given to us by Leo XIII. And legend has it that it was after a vision of, after he celebrated Mass, a vision of the devil, conversation with God and the future of the church. So he commanded it to be prayed after all Masses. Of course, it was dropped in 1962. And just before the Vatican Council, actually, before the council was called, it was dropped, and hasn't been said since. I remember some priests, some of the older priests, even in the modern Mass, would pray the Salve Regina and the St. Michael prayer, but that fell out of practice. Yes. It's a great prayer against the fact, and it reminds us too of how easily we can be seduced by the devil and his prompts, and that we do need to seek protection against it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it is actually a fascinating story. The derivation of the prayer from Leo XIII, when it was said that after Mass he was praying his thanksgiving, and suddenly began to overhear, as it were, a conversation between God and the devil. And those who were with him in the chapel said that he looked just gone out, to use a colloquial expression. And afterwards was clearly shaken by the experience, and was moved, inspired to pen this prayer, and of course a longer version. There's a longer version of a prayer to St. Michael as well. Father Tom, perhaps you could speak to personal usage of this prayer as a form of almost self-deliverance ministry, or as a protection against satanic attack. Interestingly, of course, for the rest of the world, today was the feast of Saint Cyprian and Justina, and Justina was able to resist the magic spells that Cyprian and his demon were trying to induce her to fall in love with him, because of her making the sign of the cross, fasting, and prayers. Now, the St. Michael prayer is always recommended by exorcists and those involved in deliverance ministry. But Father Tom, could you speak to the personal usage of it, and when you might want to use it, or when you should use it?
Well, Padre Pio said about 50 rosaries a day. I say this prayer to St. Michael about maybe 60 to 100 times a day. And I'm not kidding. There's a reason why St. Michael the Archangel is the patron saint of police officers, and why you see so many good Orthodox, traditional Catholic groups. I think TFP was one of them, going around praying rosaries in our nation's capital here in the United States, and handing out St. Michael medals, blessed St. Michael medals with a prayer card to the police officers that they would come in contact with. this saint, this archangel who led the heavenly army to ward out those who would not serve to their eternal place, if you will, for not serving the one true God. And for those who are called the peacekeepers, those who put themselves in harm's way for the safety and well-being of others. This saint, this prayer should be invoked for all police officers, for all men and women who serve. And if we can, encourage these men and women who wear that badge of honor to have a St. Michael medal, to get them a St. Michael medal. You know, for us clergy, I think we should. I think, you know, it would be a good, normal thing for us to do as clergy, as fathers, spiritual fathers, to support our police officers. You know, maybe go down to one of the local stores, buy a bag of medals and bless them and hand them out. Because now more than ever, we need to show true invocation of the saint. And yeah, I pray this. I pray this in the jail all the time. I pray it, you know, not just out of a routine or a habit, but I pray it because I know what I'm capable of as a human being, as a fallen, sinful man, when I'm getting provoked. I know what I'm capable of doing. And that's not Christ-like. That's not Christian. So I invoke St. Michael. I invoke my guardian angel to pray. And I take that few seconds of prayer, a minute or two of prayer. And it works. It does. Because I still have my job and no one's gotten harmed. So we're good. Because we need St. Michael. We need our guardian angel. We need our patron saint. And this is a short prayer. It takes maybe 20 seconds or a minute to pray reverently. And we need now more than ever to pray this prayer. We need to know St. Michael as St. Michael knows Christ, as we're called to know Christ. Anyone who puts themselves into outline ministry or severe ministries where you're out with homeless, you're out with those imprisoned, or the less anything like that, where it's a danger, there's a dangerous atmosphere to it. We need to invoke St. Michael. We need to bring that love and protection of St. Michael that only comes from the love and protection of Christ through his Blessed Mother and by the ultimate means of the church. You know, and we need to invoke St. Michael. And yes, you know, I pray. I use this prayer. I mean, going to work, at work. Typically, I'll pray my guardian angel prayers and St. Michael prayers together. I just sound them off, and it's like, you know, if I can't pray a rosary, I just recite this prayer continuously. If someone's agitating me and just pushing my buttons at work, whoever that may be, I say, Michael the Archangel, come to my assistance, be my protection against the wicked and snares of the devil. I just keep on going back and forth with it, just going through it because it's needed. And it works. It truly 100% works. So I cannot speak highly enough of this great saint. And I am grateful for all the protection he's had for me and for those who I work with, who I've entrusted their care or his care to them, because we tend to as Catholics and as Christians, we tend to underestimate the power of prayer and the power of invocation. And I think it's time we get that back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, unless anyone has, go on.
Just a few more things on St. Michael.
Yeah.
You brought up the police there. I was worried you were going to suggest that we defund St. Michael, but anyway. Yeah. So in the United States, they often have. I know in New York they do. They have a mass for police on St. Michael's Day, but they also have a mass for St. Michael for the beginning of the judicial year, certainly in Ireland.
Yeah, the Red Mass.
The Red Mass in England, yeah.
Yeah.
We don't wear red in Ireland anymore. So. Just somber black. But we do still have the Mass for the King's Inn. Yeah, so it marks the beginning of the judicial year. That sort of notion of justice being meted out, the thwarting of evil, notion of the invocation of St. Michael, and also traditionally, and I knew about Dublin, but I didn't know that the Mayor of London, which is a ceremonial. There's a number of mayors of London, right? The Lord Mayor, I believe, is a ceremonial.
Yeah, it's ceremonial. Yeah.
And but I believe that he is announced or elected on St. Michael's Day, and certainly a number of cities in Ireland were also. Dublin was, and there's a curious thing that I don't know where this comes from. But Dublin could not be inaugurated before Drogheda, which is 70 miles north of Dublin. So, I mean, I'm sure they sent a text message now, but years ago, a courier was dispatched to gallop all the way to Dublin to say that Drogheda has been inaugurated. Off you go.
Wow.
And yeah, there's... the mayor of Cork, someone I may get this mixed up. I think the Doge of Venice, I think threw a wedding ring into the sea to show the marriage between the city and the lagoon, I suppose. But the mayor of Cork in Ireland, which is way in the southern coast. The third largest city on the island, but the mayor, and I think this still happens, goes out on a boat and he throws a dart into the sea, supposedly as far as his jurisdiction will go. But that happens on St. Michael's Day. And one final thing, and you can all Google this, but I think it's fascinating. The sword of St. Michael, the so-called sword of St. Michael.
Oh, yes. I know about this. Go on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
And it's legit.
Yeah.
It starts in Ireland at Skellig Michael.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
If you don't know it, you've probably seen it on the recent Star Wars movies. And it goes down to St. Michael's Mount in Cornwall.
That's right.
And
then Mont Saint-Michel.
And then I got the rest of them here because I forget them.
Yeah.
Sacre di San Michele in Italy. Sanctuary of Monte Sant'Angelo in Italy. The Panormitis Monastery, Simi in Greece, and the Stella Maris Monastery in Mount Carmel, Israel.
Yeah.
And it's a direct line all the way across the continent of Europe.
Which is incredible.
It is really incredible.
And really incredible when you think that the dedications really, I mean, the dedications derive from appearances and apparitions of St. Michael.
Yes.
Not because people thought, oh, why don't we go onto that really remote island to build a church, or climb that tall mountain and build a church. But in each instance, the foundation is attributed to and directed to an apparition or vision or a message from St. Michael.
Yeah.
Over centuries. This is over centuries.
Yeah, and not all at once.
And this is the other thing that, just to 2 cents about this, because it's beautiful, it's miraculous, really, is that this was before technology, this was before anything like that. So you couldn't see a satellite image to make sure you're getting this exactly right. This was divine inspiration, divine guidance that St. Michael in his sword was able to protect the continent and bring a line from, if you need any type of proof for the existence of God and faith in the church, there's one right there. And a pretty outstanding one, if I may say so, at that. That only God could have man allowed to make something like this, these dedications, these churches, these places of his worship, for his worship of him and him alone, line up like this. I mean, case closed for the...
There's often these days, in a very pessimistic times that we live in, and Benedict XVI himself talked about this, but there's often this decline of Europe, this fall of Europe. But this is a reminder that the sword of St. Michael is hovering over it in protection, that it won't be lost. It may go through times of tribulation and decay, which is clear, but there is a sword of protection right across it. That it comes, it originated, of course, in the Holy Land, but the cradle of Christianity was Europe. It was Rome, and from there it spread. And there is that sword of Saint Michael protecting it. And of course, if you've ever been to Rome too, one of the most phenomenal buildings in Rome is the Castle of
San Angelo.
And that wonderful bridge on the way across.
Yeah.
Wasn't that where the Pacamamas were dropped off?
Exactly, the very bridge where the Pacamama was cast into the Tiber.
Yeah.
Which was, the Tiber itself was a host to all sorts of pagan deities. But you have that wonderful, all these images bringing you over to the Castle of San Angelo, of course, which was the prison. Again, you have Michael as the sort of symbol of justice, the thwarting of angels, but thwarting of evil. It's also rich, and as I think we said off camera, Archbishop last week, these are things that mark our Catholic lives, our Catholic culture. And we need to, as we said last week, we need to make ourselves visible on the pavement of society again. And we should celebrate. If you can get a goose, if you don't even have a goose, get a chicken. But bring the family around. And
poultry, yeah.
Poultry. Roasted chicken, sit down, have a formal meal. Talk to your kids, talk to your spouse. Celebrate. And the reason you're doing this is for St. Michael. The other
is that an invite to the Chancery or
blackberry pies?
Oh
yeah.
Because the legend is when the devil was cast out, he landed in a blackberry bush and the thorns. And there's also a wonderful. I had no idea about this, but it's big in Scotland apparently, or it was. But that that he cursed the blackberry bush, and I think even somewhere that he urinated on it. And so you're not to eat blackberries after Michaelmas, but the tradition was you had a big blackberry pie on Michaelmas. So these are wonderful things. It's a way to teach your children about good and evil, about the history of the church, the saints, and the angels. As a way to sit down and celebrate and take a break from the hustle and bustle of life and celebrate our Catholic culture. And these are great things.
Yeah. I have one more thing to tie this whole thing together with. We have that sword of St. Michael protecting the continental Europe. How do we wield that sword? One may ask, if they want to be Catholic, they want to live out their authentic Catholic life a little bit more. Right here. By wielding this sword, this dagger, this is what the rosary is. It's a personal sword. It's a dagger for us to carry with us at all times, to be ready. So that way we can have the strength to be able to wield, along with St. Michael, that sword of protection. Because we can't just go up and take that sword if we don't have the grace and the strength ready to do it. The rosary will give us that grace and that strength we need to have that sword of protection of St. Michael to defend us and protect us against the enemies and snares of the devil.
Cool. And with that in mind, let's we always close with a blessing, and perhaps Bishop Kelly, after the prayer, you would pray a blessing on us all. But let's pray together the prayer to St. Michael. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in the day of battle. Be our protection against the malice and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do you, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the divine power, thrust into hell Satan and all evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruin of souls. Amen.
The Lord be with you.
And with thy spirit.
May the blessing of Almighty God, the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, come upon you and remain with you forever. Amen.
Amen.
Saint Michael the Archangel,
Pray
for us. Great. Well, thank you, fathers, and thank you all for watching. This was Old Romans Unscripted Michaelmas edition. Now, of course, next week will be the eve of St. Francis. So we'll no doubt talk about the Seraphic Father, and I'm sure our Franciscan friends here have plenty of stories to share with us about the witness, the testimony, and the life of their holy founder. Meanwhile,
unfortunately, I won't be on. I'll be at work. Unfortunately,
you'll be at work. Oh, okay, all right. Bishop Kelly, will you be with us?
I should be.
Excellent. Excellent.
I think it's the following weekend I might be missing, but
okay, yeah. Cool. All right. Well, bless you all for watching. Don't forget, we have programs every day: Mass, the Angelus, Rosary. So always welcome to join us. We keep regular times and schedules. You can find out in the show notes below. Meanwhile, as I say, this was Old Romans Unscripted, and we will see you soon. Take care and God bless.
bye.